Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Fix Game Week 34 live stream. My name is FPL Nacho, and I am going to be hosting this live stream for the next 45 minutes or so, discussing all of the hot topics going into Saturday's deadline, of course, being Game Week 34. Quick heads up, slightly under the weather, so if you hear me coughing, if you hear me going for a few drinks here and there, it is just to keep myself going through this live stream. But of course, the content continues. So as always, guys, if you do enjoy the live stream, please do drop it a like and hit that subscribe button. We have, four game weeks left over. So not much left over, but still so much can happen in that time frame. Plenty of time for you guys to win your mini leagues, climb those ranks, and hopefully this live stream can help you guide you towards those green arrows, because fingers crossed we can have strong finishes. I know a lot of you have your chips available, wildcards, free hits, bench boosts, and in particular your wildcards, which we are going to be touching on a lot in this live stream. So of course, this isn't a deadline live stream. This is a normal live stream, which is brilliant because we can sit back a little bit, relax, go through a few hot topics, and importantly, answer some of your questions that you have ahead of Game Week 34. So as always, quick lowdown of what is going to be happening. Just a rough layout on this live stream. Going to be looking at Mount versus Havertz. I know it's a very popular debate right now. Then we're going to be looking at Chelsea defenders. Do we even need one? Who is the best one? And is there better options on the market, in particular at Man City? Going to be doing a wildcard team reveal, more based on predicted points going forward. So hopefully that wildcard team will give you a little bit of an idea on which players are predicted from now until Game Week 38 to do well. Looking at the usual algorithm points, and of course revealing the algorithm 11, which is essentially a free hit team. So for anyone who may be going a bit rogue, looking for a free hit team, that is going to be absolutely ideal for you guys. And if you're looking for 1 week punts, I know a lot of you are wildcarding in Game Week 35. That algorithm team is going to be really important to you as well, because it will highlight some of the best 1 week players based on our predicted points. So see who's in the chat right now. FBL Bateman, hope you're doing well. Do you feel Nketiah is first choice now? Now, as a Chelsea fan, absolutely devastated that Nketiah had a really good game against us, but about time he got some minutes in that Arsenal side. Lacazette, while he's doing a great team job as a forward, really isn't doing the business in regards to goals and assists. Nketiah could be the answer for Arsenal. Now, the way I'm viewing Nketiah right now, I believe he's about 5.2, 5.3 million. So if he remains in that Arsenal team as a forward, he is phenomenal value. And I think he's a brilliant wildcard pick going forward if you want a third forward that you're happy to bench and rotate in and out, because he's at the same price point as the likes of Mateta and Pukki. So while his minutes might be a bit more riskier, playing for a lot better team, fixtures are decent, I think Nketiah could be a shrewd move. The one thing I would say about Nketiah is I feel like he's one bad performance away from being kind of taken straight back out the team. And that's really the caveat that you have to have if you do consider Nketiah. I really think he's that sort of player where he hasn't got enough credit in the bank in an Arsenal shirt to have a few poor performances and fall back on that. So that is the big problem for him right now. He needs to continue scoring goals, putting in good performances. Otherwise, I think he'll be quickly out as he was put back in. Body by Duff, hope you're doing well. Good evening, getting close to the end now. So I just want to thank you for all the great content throughout the year. Very helpful and very much appreciated. Really do appreciate it, buddy. And thank you for tuning in, obviously, throughout the course of the season. George 100, Mount versus Havertz. I went Mount as I thought he's less of a rotation risk in the longer term. What are my thoughts? George, great question again. As I mentioned in terms of the format going forward, Mount versus Havertz is going to be the first hot topic that we cover, because I know that a lot of you are looking to bring in a Chelsea midfielder. Now, what I want to quickly cover for just 2 minutes is going to be some potential price changes tonight. Something that we don't really touch on a lot now, because naturally the transfers are slowed down as the season progresses. It isn't as crazy as we do see at the start of the season when people are jumping in on random players. So I'm using the Fantasy Football Fix price change predictor here, and I've just highlighted basically players that I know a lot of managers either own or are targeting that potentially are rising or falling, and we need to be considering these players, because if you're getting priced out, just be cautious that if you do not make your move tonight and this player changes, that could be the difference between you affording them and not affording them. Now, for those OGs out there that tuned into our price change predictions videos, you'll know that wildcard wildcard transfers do not contribute towards price changes. So we're in a game week right now where wildcards are very, very active in the community right now. And that could mean that some of these potential price changes are skewed by these wildcards. So it is worth mentioning that as well. So quickly touching on some of the potential price rises. Edison at Man City, he's crossed the 100% threshold. Alisson as well. So a lot of managers going for the goalkeepers in the 2 premium size as their defensive coverage. Not a big fan of that myself, but clearly the market is moving towards that. Fabian Schär looking like he might rise tonight potentially. Dewsbury Hall, another budget enabler, a lot of wildcarders are moving towards. Got Bruno Guimaraes as well, obviously off the back of his brace and assist. Looking like a really nice budget pick. Fixtures for Newcastle though, not the best. Then we got some of the interesting ones. Timo Werner and Reece James at Chelsea. Obviously Werner getting a lot of love right now, looking a lot better as a Chelsea asset. And while his finishing is still a lot to be desired, getting into some really good positions. And Reece James still being an attractive asset. While he is operating as a right centre-back, I don't think that necessarily hinders him as an FPL asset going forward. Could potentially rise in price tonight. And the other one is, as we touched on, Arsenal's Nketiah. Again, he has a long way to go before hitting that 100% threshold, but one to monitor definitely. And a few that are potentially falling in price. Harry Kane has seen a lot of transfers out, which is really surprising to see. But of course, with Tottenham not having a double game week this week and a bit of a difficult double game week in 36, I think managers are looking at the likes of Chelsea and other directions to get their value in the front line. So Harry Kane is the sacrificial lamb right now, and he might fall in price tonight. Adams at Southampton, Sarr at Wolves, a very popular pick for those that wildcarded back in game week 26. Ramsdale and surprisingly Saka, if the progress continues the way it is, could fall in price tonight. And that is definitely somebody I would not urge managers looking to sell right now. I think he's definitely one that you could hold from now until the end of the season and could offer great value continuously. So I would definitely be recommending managers holding Saka going forward. So let me know in the chat, guys. Do you own any of the players that are rising or falling tonight? What are your transfer plans? It'd be great to deep dive into some of your transfer thoughts, guys, and what the plan is. But I know we got a few more questions in the chat right now. Cheeks, I hope you're doing well, buddy, as well. But I think it's a great opportunity for us to quickly dip into the first hot topic, which is going to be Mount versus Havertz. Because I know a lot of you are in the market for a Chelsea midfielder, and these two are right up there as the best options available. Now, if you're currently wildcarding right now, with the news of Rudiger being ruled out for the first game of Chelsea's double against West Ham, I think that naturally makes managers shift from a double Chelsea defence to a single Chelsea defence and then maybe a double Chelsea midfield. Now, if you're looking for 2 Chelsea midfielders, then these two are absolutely the best 2 options available to you. And you don't have to worry about this section then if that's the case. These 2 are the ones you go for and you stick with them. But I know a lot of managers right now are in the market for just 1 Chelsea midfielder. And this is where the debate comes in hand in regards to Mount versus Havertz. Now, of course, both playing in slightly differing roles. Havertz being essentially the number 9 at Chelsea. Mount usually operating on the right-hand side of a front 3. But what we have seen in recent game weeks is a shift in the Chelsea formation to a essentially 3-4-1-2. Playing 2 forwards and Mason Mount in the number 10 behind, having the license to kind of operate wherever he wants on the pitch, which has been a really interesting change for him as an FPL option. Now, we're going to look at first and foremost these 2 assets over the course of the season, and then we're going to really narrow it down to 6 game weeks, the last 6 game weeks, to see how maybe the formation change has benefited or hindered them as FPL assets. So, worth noting, Mason Mount's played 500 minutes more than Havertz this season. Mount been pretty much ever-present in the Chelsea team throughout the course of the season. Obviously, Havertz, few injuries, rotation with Lukaku. Only recently he's really found his feet as the number 1 forward in this Chelsea team. Now, the heat maps here for both players kind of highlight the positions that they have been taking out throughout the course of the season. As I mentioned, Mason Mount predominantly operating on the right of a front 3. And you can see that on a touch heat map there. Very much on that side of the pitch and getting plenty of touches in and around the box. Havertz, on the other hand, much more sporadic across the pitch. No particular area where he's really dominant in, but what I really do like to see on that touch heat map is plenty of touches in and around the 6-yard box and penalty area. Exactly where we want to see a number 9 in this Chelsea team. Obviously creating plenty of chances, somewhere where we know Lukaku does not live at all. Now, I want to come all the way down to the underlying stats for both players. And I want to come down to average statistics per 90. Because, of course, they have played slightly differing minutes. So I want to kind of look at it as if both players were to play 90 minutes so far this season, how have they been operating as an FPL asset? So you can see that Mason Mount, 0.47 goals per 90. Havertz, 0.43 per 90. So really, really close between the two. I couldn't sit here and say that one is dominating the other. And the exact same goes for expected goals as well. Havertz, 0.36 expected goals. Mason Mount, 0.35 expected goals. So again, very, very little in it. And almost a toss of a coin, really, if you were basing your judgment off the back of just these underlying stats. And again, we're looking at shots here. 2.63 shots per 90 for Mount. 2.62 shots per 90 for Havertz. Again, shots on target incredibly close as well. As you'd expect, the shots in the box is in Havertz's favour because he is operating as that number 9. And we saw on that touch heat map getting plenty of touches in and around the penalty area. 2.19 shots per 90 compared to Mason Mount's 1.64. But in regards to actual creation, very much in Mason Mount's ballpark here. Goal assists, 0.42 per 90. Havertz, only 0.12. And the expected assists are massively in Mason Mount's favour as well. 0.23 per 90, 0.08 per 90 for Havertz. So that's the big thing right now. What we are seeing is, from a goal threat perspective, over the course of the season, both have been pretty much on par for output and for underlying stats. But when it comes to actual creation, Mason Mount is head and shoulders above Kai Havertz. But again, fully expected because Mason Mount operating either as a right-sided of the front three or in that number 10 role. His expectation is to be the one to create chances for this Chelsea team. So absolutely no surprises in the underlying stats there and the actual output for both of these players. Now, as I mentioned, we have seen a slight change of formation for Chelsea over the last few game weeks. And I don't really want to isolate the last 2 game weeks. I think that's too much of a small sample for us to make any sort of judgments off. So I've decided to filter it from game week 28 to game week 33 that's just passed for Chelsea. I think while there's a bit of crossover here between old formations and new formations, I think it's probably enough of a data size for us to come to not necessarily a conclusion, but some sort of idea on whether a particular asset is emerging as a better one. Now, again, Mason Mount has played slightly more minutes than Kai Havertz over this period and is averaging 7.3 points per game compared to Havertz's 7. So again, super close between the two. Nothing jumping out there to say that one is better than the other based on the points per game average. Now, when we look at the heat map, I don't like to read too much into these heat maps when we're looking at only a 6 game week sample size. There's very little that you can conclude when you're looking at this right now. Mason Mount, as we expecting, as he's been operating more in that number 10 role, getting plenty of touches on both the left and right flanks, as you can imagine, being more of a floater in that team. Havertz, again, touches in and around the box, much more than Mason Mount, but again, having the license to drift into that middle third and be a creation for Chelsea in that team. And one thing to note as well, of course, for those managers that do care, Mason Mount on set pieces is a key factor. We do have some big boys in the likes of Rudiger, Thiago Silva, very handy in the air as well. So definitely a factor to take into consideration when we are considering these 2 FPL assets. Now, again, I want to come down to the actual output of both of these players. And we're going to come down again to the per 90 stats for both. And this is where we do start to see a little bit of a shift towards one certain FPL asset. And that is going to be Kai Havertz. Now, over the last 6 game weeks, average statistics per 90, Kai Havertz is averaging 1.03 goals per 90. Mason Mount, on the other hand, 0.56. So Mason Mount having a very good goals output there per 90, but Havertz really pushing the bar here on 1.03. And the expected goals is definitely in Havertz's favour as well. 0.62 per 90 compared to Mason Mount's 0.29. Shots are in Kai Havertz's favour, shots on target and shots in the box. But again, the same pattern emerges where Mason Mount continues to be more the creator in this Chelsea team with higher goal assists and expected assists over 90 minutes in the last 6 game weeks. So really interesting to see that whatever may have shifted in this Chelsea team, and again, it's worth noting, it's a much smaller sample size. It looks like it's definitely benefited Kai Havertz from a goal perspective. The goal creation department still is definitely in Mason Mount's favour. But what I do like to see here is Kai Havertz being very, very dominant in this area, in particular being a number 9 in that Chelsea team. That's where I want to see him getting all these underlying stats. And where the output is, the underlying stats are backing it. So I think if we're looking really short term, I think Kai Havertz is the man to own in game week 34 if you are looking for a 1 week punt. He did miss, of course, about an hour of the Arsenal game coming on as a sub in the second half. So he's going to be fit for the West Ham game, and I fully expect him to play both the West Ham and the Man United fixture. So I think if I was in the market for a Chelsea midfielder, Kai Havertz would be top of the list for me. I think if I was looking at a player from now until the end of the season, I think Mason Mount would be one I would go for. Now, I know it's a little bit contradictory, but I know his minutes are pretty locked on in this Chelsea team. And what I really do like is how well-rounded he is as an asset. His underlying stats in terms of goals are still very, very good. And what I do like is that his expected assists continue to match that. Havertz, on the other hand, very much dependent on actual goals in comparison to his goal creation. And that's what I really like about Mason Mount. I think he has a few more strings to his bow, set pieces in particular as well. So short term, absolutely Havertz. From now until the end of the season, if you're on that sort of transfer plan, then I think Mason Mount is the one for you to own. So let me know in the chat, guys, what are your thoughts on Chelsea assets? What sort of direction you plan on going in? Is there any that I've been discussing that I haven't mentioned that should be in the conversation? Now, I'm going to go through some of the questions in a minute, guys. Then we'll move on to the next section, which is going to be Chelsea defenders. So, George, I also have Rudiger. Apologies. I also sold Rudiger for Laporte as I feel Rudiger is a major doubt. And Watford at home looks like guaranteed returns with Stones, Ake and Walker all injury risks. Yes, George, great shout there. As we know, Rudiger is definitely ruled out for the West Ham game. Wouldn't be surprised if he's wheeled out for that Man United game, but how fit he is going to be, we really don't know. And they are going to have eyes on, in particular, that FA Cup final. So it is worth noting that as well in regards to Rudiger. Laporte as an FPL option, I really do like. We haven't had the Man City double game week announcement yet, whether it's going to be game week 36 or 37. But if that falls into game week 36, I think that's going to be a brilliant transfer to bring in Laporte as an option. And for those wondering, why is 36 better than 37? The only reason being is because a popular strategy in the FPL community right now is to free hit in game week 37. So moving the double game week to 36 makes free transfers really popular for Man City options. Therefore, Laporte being a really attractive option. Mads, good evening. Kane, Mateta and Kulusevski out. Werner, Pukki and Havertz / Mount in. Are they good moves? So Mads, I think you're in a bit of a spot here where I'm not a big fan of you selling Harry Kane. However, when you are bringing in a double game weeker, then naturally you would like to think it is going to pay you back over the longer term. Like Pukki from basically now into the end of the season, and Mount and Havertz are brilliant options as well. So yes, while I do really like those moves, I don't think you need to desperately make those moves. I think you could easily just do the Kulusevski move to a Chelsea midfielder if you don't have to make that Kane move. Because I think while I do like Werner as an option, what I'm not seeing from him is necessarily a confident finisher. We're seeing the output, but what I'm not seeing from the eye test is dominant finisher. And that's the worry right now from a Werner perspective. Cheekster, should we really be doubling up with Chelsea defence after conceding 4 goals at home? I think if I was wildcarding right now, Cheekster, I definitely would be moving for the 1 defender, 2 midfielder sort of strategy rather than going for the 2 defence, 1 midfield. I just think that with Rudiger being out, that massively hinders Chelsea from a defensive perspective. And I think going in double, unless you really want to punt James and Alonso, I think it's worth just going for the 1 right now. Jonathan Crawford, hope you're doing well. Hey FPL Nacho. Head versus heart here. I've already done Saka to Mount, okay? Not big on the Saka sell, but I appreciate that for the double game week, that could pay in the short term. Thinking about swapping Kane and Ramsey for a -8, either for Werner and Mahrez or Nketiah and KDB. Seems wrong, but tempted. Okay, so naturally, you selling Ramsey, I do like that move. He hasn't really been an FPL option in the last few months. And if you were able to do Werner and Mahrez, that probably would be the direction that I would like to go in. I think Nketiah is a brilliant option if he does maintain his game time in the Arsenal team. However, I do think that there is a solid chance that one bad performance and Lacazette gets put straight back into that Arsenal team just to try and bring some experience into that top 4 chase that they're after. So while Nketiah could be a phenomenal FPL option, I think I would prefer the Werner and Mahrez option. But you know that if you are going for that Man City midfield, you are asking for trouble with the rotation. And that's the big thing I would say to you is, do you have the gut to go for a Man City option with the rotation that it could cause? So I don't mind it, Jonathan, but I'm still a big Harry Kane fan from now until the end of the season. Jake saying, why Pookie? I'm not sure what the discussion was about Pookie, but Jake, Pookie, with the fixtures coming up and our projected points, actually comes out really well as a forward, in particular if you are looking to use your wildcard. And we'll discuss that in a little bit for sure. And Donacha Higgins is saying, Laporte or Alonso already have Rudiger. Now, this is a really difficult one. Again, we haven't had the Man City double game week announcement, whether it's going to be 36 or 37. But I personally would be very tempted to go for Laporte rather than a double Chelsea defence. Now, the main reason being is, with Rudiger out, I think that really does hinder Chelsea from a defensive perspective. Of course, game week 35 looks great for Chelsea against Everton, but then they have a double game week 36 against Wolves and Leeds. The big problem with the Leeds fixture, which is the second half of the double game week, is that it is 2 days before the FA Cup final. Now, I am fully expecting Chelsea to play a strong team against Wolves in the first game, and then almost a second string team in that second half. So while you might be bringing in a player for a double, single, double, be cautious that you are going to be in a situation where you might get plenty of rotation in that double game week 36. So just be cautious of that if you are doubling down on the Chelsea defence. I see we've got plenty of people in the chat right now. If you haven't already, please do drop a like. We have had a constant theme here where we have hit 50 likes on every live stream. Please do get us there, guys. Would really appreciate it. It's in particular at this part in the season when naturally motivation to play FPL does start to dwindle a little bit. Obviously, the OGs, the hardcorers are still here. So if you can get us to 100 likes, 50 likes by the end of the live stream, we would really appreciate that massively. Right, guys, so going to move into the next hot topic. Again, going to do this, jump back into the questions, come back into hot topics. So hopefully that format keeps us flowing a little bit. So next up, we're going to be looking at Chelsea defenders. Now, we've touched on this, so I'm not really spending forever on this, but I really think it's a discussion for us to have. And I brought up the Fantasy Football Fix player comparison for us to look at the following 4 players. Reece James, Thiago Silva and Alonso at Chelsea. I think they're the 3 that we need to target right now. Other notable ones, Azpilicueta, don't really trust his game time necessarily. Chalobah, again, game time is a big risk right now. Rudiger, currently injured. Malang Sarr, no. And Christensen, again, not an FPL option that we want to be considering right now. Now, I've thrown Laporte into the equation as well. And the main reason being is because I think he is massively going under the radar right now. I think a lot of players of fantasy football are looking at the double game week in 34 for Chelsea, seeing the double and wanting to pile in on their Chelsea defence. But what I really do like about Laporte as an option is Man City, first and foremost, are the best defensive team in the league, bar none, in particular from an underlying stats perspective. Laporte with Ake, Stones, Walker potentially injured, it looks like his game time is pretty secure. And what I really do like as well is his potential double game week 36, because what we do all the time is we look short term and not necessarily the long term. And what I really like about Laporte is a home game against Watford, which, you know, if I had a bank on it, it would be a clean sheet. A decent game week 35 fixture and that potential double in 36. Now, I appreciate, because it's longer down the line, you could make your moves, go for a Chelsea defender, and then in another game week go for a Man City defender. If that's your situation, you have the free transfers to play with that, then I think that's your optimal strategy. Go for Chelsea in double game week 34 and get your Man City assets ahead of potential double game week 36. But I think Laporte should be in the discussion, in particular because of his price point at 5.9 million. So, apologies, I'll quick drink a minute. Now, all 4 players here have played differing minutes. So again, I filtered it by average per game for us to get a real idea on how they do operate when they are playing for their respective teams. Now, a bit of a spoiler alert, Reece James is going to be the dominant FPL option in this comparison here. It's only natural. He's been a phenomenal FPL option when he's actually been operating as a right wing back when Chelsea have had their full strength team. So when you look at it, FPL points 5.5 per game. But again, what I really like to see there is Laporte, 5 points per game. He's a centre-back, still ticking over amazing. And importantly, he's played the most minutes of all these players. So what I love about that is when you look at Laporte's underlying stats here, that is over such a large sample size that we can really come to some conclusions about that. Whereas James has played 1,000 minutes less. So naturally, his underlying stats could look great. But what I love about Laporte is that he's played 1,000 more minutes. His underlying stats still look really, really solid. And that to me sells it as a great FPL option. Now goals, again, Reece James being the main goal threat of the 4 here. No surprise, 0.3 goals per 90. Thiago Silva, Alonso and Laporte, 0.1 per game. FPL assists, again, in Reece James's favour, 0.3 per game. 0.2 per game for Alonso, again, as we'd expect, being left wing back in this Chelsea team, and 0.1 for Laporte. What I do like about Laporte is that he is a goal threat from set pieces. So we are actually buying a centre-back that has FPL history and pedigree of being a goal-scoring centre-back. So that's what I really do like about Laporte. And again, naturally, when Reece James is getting the goals, getting the assists, he is a bonus points magnet, averaging 0.9 points per game. Silva and Alonso 0.5 per game and Laporte 0.3. So Laporte, not necessarily a bonus point magnet, which might be a bit of a worry for managers when they're debating to bring in a defender for their team. Naturally, at Man City, the likes of Cancelo absolutely hoover up them bonus points because of the passing tiers that he hits, the creativity, the shot volume that he does create. So naturally, Cancelo is the dominant Man City defender. But at 5.9 million, I really do like what I'm seeing with Laporte as an FPL option. Now, below the player names there, you can see certain figures, and these are the predicted points over the next 5 game weeks. So Laporte coming out bottom on 24 points over the next 5 game weeks. Reece James, 24.8. Thiago Silva, 30.5. And Alonso, 33.4. So Alonso is head and shoulders above all of the other assets as the predicted points over the next 5 game weeks. Now, it's worth mentioning, Chelsea do have a double in game week 34 and a double in game week 36 based on our predicted points. We know that there will be a double game week to drop in for Man City in either game week 36 or game week 37, and that is going to then increase those projected points for Laporte. And I would expect him to be around the Thiago Silva range, between Thiago Silva and Alonso. And I think that's going to really boost Laporte up in those projected points and as an attractive FPL option for us. So the big question mark right now about Reece James is, where does he play in this Chelsea team? In the last few game weeks, he's been playing as a right centre-back, for those managers that didn't know. And it's basically been saving himself to actually be able to play in each and every game. Now, while this does hinder him as a potential FPL option in regards to creation, what I do like is that it means that his minutes are probably a bit more guaranteed in this Chelsea team because he can operate as both a right winger and a right centre-back. So I think that does actually play in his favour rather than hinder him as an FPL option. Now, do we pay the additional for Reece James in the current climate that we're in, with Rudiger being out injured? I personally still think Reece James is the best Chelsea option for you to consider. From an eye test perspective, I still can't confidently sit here and say to you that Alonso is going to play every game from now until the end of the season. He really is getting carried in a lot of these games. Yes, from an attacker perspective, he is a great option in this Chelsea team. but does leave a lot to be desired from a defensive perspective. And I feel like Tuchel is only playing him because he has no other alternative available. And we have seen the likes of Pulisic, even Reece James operate at left wing back from time to time because we just play someone other than Alonso to get him off that field. And that's why I think I do prefer Reece James as the option. I feel like his minutes can be pretty locked in from now into the end of the season, barring that Leeds game, which is 2 days before the FA Cup final. I think that he can definitely still play as a right wing back. I don't think he's going to be completely restricted to right centre back. We will see him be deployed in that right wing back spot between now and the end of the season. And while I do like Thiago Silva as a nice option to tick along, again, I have question marks about his fitness and how he is going to be deployed between now and the end of the season. So I think he is too much of a minutes risk for us to consider. Now, the big debate here is, if Man City get dropped with a double game week 36, do you go for Laporte or Reece James? Now, let me bring up the fixture analyzer here for us to look at the fixtures coming up. And you can see for Chelsea, they have double in game week 34, game week 35 away against Everton, double in game week 36, but again, take the double with a pinch of salt, mainly because Leeds away 2 days before the FA Cup final. I really do expect a lot of these players to get rested in that Leeds game. And then Leicester at home in game week 37. Man City, on the other hand, Watford at home, Leeds away, Newcastle at home, West Ham away. However, we know that there is a Wolves game to be rearranged, and we expect that to be probably game week 36 by the rumours that we are seeing. Now, if I was to drop Wolves in that game week 36 fixture alongside Newcastle, I look at Watford, Leeds, Newcastle plus Wolves, and I see clean sheets for Man City over that period. And while Reece James is definitely going to be offering more of an attacking threat, I really do like Laporte as a double up in that Man City defence from now until the end of the season. And I really would urge managers to just have a little second thought when they are looking to bring in Chelsea defenders and maybe question if they don't have a Man City defender, could Laporte tick that box for you and be a bit more of a trusted asset between now and the end of the season? So let me know in the chat, guys, what your thoughts are. What direction are you going for? Are you going for Man City defenders? Are you going for Chelsea defenders? Be really interested to know what thoughts you guys have. Right, guys, let's have a look at some of the questions here. Moshe saying, I reckon the price changes won't be that massive because of many wildcards. Yes, absolutely agree with you there. Wildcards do impact FPL price changes. Remember, wildcard transfers do not impact FPL price changes. So that can skew some of the projections that you are seeing. Jake T saying, our free hitting already active. Well, Jake, do stick around for our algorithm 11. Don't want to be missing that. That is effectively an 11 of the best players that are projected to score the most points based on a budget, effectively. And Moshe saying, I have Havertz and Mount and Reece, also Kane and Ramsdale. Yes, don't mind that at all. I think the Havertz and Mount combination with Reece is probably the top three that I would go for. And it's worth noting, guys, I think if I was having to put a top three right now for Chelsea assets and I had to pick three in a wildcard, I think I would go for Reece James, Mason Mount and Havertz as my three trio in a wildcard squad. Now, Mohammed saying, I'm wildcarded and confused between going for Saka and Kulusevski or Foden and Dewsbury Hall / Gordon. Well, Saka, I really do think is a brilliant FPL option between now and the end of the season. I think naturally what we're seeing here is Saka with, Kulusevski with a tricky double game week in 36. I'll bring up the fixtures a minute for you so we can see the comparison of the fixtures. So Arsenal with a double in game week 36 of Leeds and Tottenham. I'm not that put off by that at all. And Man United in game week 34. Well, I think Saka could have a field day against anybody who they deploy in that left back role. In regards to Tottenham, well, their fixtures aren't necessarily the most attractive right now. However, Brentford, I think that's going to be a tricky away game. But then Leicester, Liverpool plus Arsenal in a double. A lot of people worried about that double. And yes, I do think that is going to be a tricky one from an attacking perspective. Tottenham had a lot of joy against Liverpool in the reverse fixture at the start of the season. And always Spurs versus Arsenal is a very difficult game to predict. It could be a goal fest. It could be cagey. We don't really know what direction that's going to go in. So I think Kulusevski is still a solid hold if you want to go that direction. Now with Phil Foden, Yes, I do like him as an option, but you are buying in a massive rotation risk. At least with Saka and Kulusevski, you're getting guaranteed game time between the two. And the question mark I have for Dewsbury Hall as well is Leicester with their Europa League involvement. I can't even see necessarily how strong Leicester are going to be week in, week out. Whether that's going to affect their rhythm as a team, I really don't know. And Dewsbury Hall, from an attacking perspective, I'm not massive on. I think I'd probably prefer Gordon with his double-double in 36 and 37. You know you're getting a player that's fighting for their lives in a relegation battle, and all that emphasis is on those league games. And that's why I'd probably just favour Gordon over Dewsbury Hall. But I probably would hold Saka and Kulusevski personally between now and the end of the season. Philip saying, who to captain, Mount or Havertz? I have both. Well, Philip, that's a really good question. And I think one that we might as well go into quickly, the algorithm points for game week 34, for us to get an idea on who the best players are to own this game week. And you can see that based on our predicted points, Havertz is top of the charts. Oh, apologies. Okay, there we go. I filtered it now. Havertz is top of the charts, 8.7 projected points for game week 34. Mason Mount, 8.3. And then Alonso, 8.3. Apologies, 8.5 for Mount. So we touched on it in the first section. Over the last 6 game weeks, from a goal perspective, Havertz's underlying stats and output is looking really, really strong. And I do really agree with the projected points here that if I was to captain Havertz or Mount this game week in isolation, it definitely would be Havertz as my pick. Now you can see there other players that are projected to score well. Thiago Silva, Mendy. And then we get some of the single game weekers. Alexander-Arnold at 7.3 projected points. We got a bit further down, we have Cancelo, 6.3, Diaz, 5.9, Foden, 5.7. Interestingly, we have not got Salah in the mix. I've just realised I had a filter on of not having his price range in, so I do apologise, but I will get Salah into the mix in a minute. Let me just filter it. Algorithm points. Apologies, guys. Give me 2 seconds. Always a technical issue from my end whenever I'm doing stuff. Okay, here we go. Salah will be in the mixer. Mount, Ronaldo 8.3, Salah 8.3. So I'll leave that on screen for you guys to check out for the algorithm points. Apologies for that then. Absolutely ruined that then. Right, guys. Apologies. I've just seen quite a few comments come through and I've completely missed them. So we'll spend a bit of time in the comments. Then we're going to move over to a wildcard team reveal to have a little discussion on that one. So Safwan saying, do you reckon it's worth taking a -8 to bring in Thiago Silva and Mount for Rudiger and Son? So I really like the Mount move, but I'm still bullish on Son as an option. I still think Son is a brilliant option between now and the end of the season. Thiago Silva is my question mark right now. I do expect him to play against West Ham. I just don't know whether he's going to have the fitness to play pretty much all the games between now and the end of the season. So while I like Mount as an option, I'll be a little bit cautious about the Thiago Silva move, just because I think while it could pay off in the short term, I think the long term might hinder you because of his minutes risk. And Mia saying, I'm in between 2 options. Which do you prefer? Kane, Rafinha to Werner and Sterling for a -4. Not big on that one. Or Wood and Rafinha to Pukki and Mount. Already have Havertz and James. You know, not big on the first option personally. I'm not massive on that in particular for a -4. Wood and Rafinha for Pukki and Mount I do like because it sets you really well for the longer term. So I like the second option of the 2, I think. Koopsy Cop saying Rudiger replacements. If you're in the market for a Rudiger replacement, I think you do look for Chelsea first and foremost. I think Reece James is a nice sideways move if you need to go there. Otherwise, Man City, Laporte, I still think is a brilliant option as a replacement. Jonathan saying that about the stats, Havertz is better against easier teams and Mount consistent against all teams. Really good point, Jonathan. I think that's definitely worth considering as well. Maybe Havertz being a bit more of a flat track bully and Mason Mount being big goal scorer. We've seen that in plenty of the games so far this season. Martha saying, so people seem to think Nketiah took Elaka's place from start 11 with those 2 lucky goals then. I think a lot of the rumours are that he is going to get a bit of game time now. But again, no absolute concrete evidence, unfortunately, about that one there. Never give up FPL. That is a good motto to have. Already got Havertz, added Mount and Werder as well. Son is the main sacrifice, RIP. All the best on that one. I really do hope that that does come out well for you. And I do like the Werner punt. Just don't know whether I can go for it myself personally. Fernandes and Ward-Prowse to Mount and Salah for a -4. Do I like that move? It gets you Salah, so I'm always big on that move. So yes, I do like that move for a -4. FPL Bateman, surely Lacazette's toast after what he said about moving on. Yeah, that definitely could be something that has definitely hindered his game time of recent weeks. CRB going Maddison to Havertz and Son to KDB. Is that a good shout? I like the Maddison to Havertz move. I think you could easily hold Son. I think, yes, you could go to KDB, but Son is still a brilliant hold as well. Jonathan, thank you for the like. Denver, even a Nacho. Grealish versus Mahrez for a punt this week. Absolutely Mahrez. If you're looking for a 1 week punt, I cannot guarantee either of those players are going to play. But if you are in a position where you need to go for one and you acknowledge that either could be dropped, then I think Mahrez is definitely the one that I would go for there. Garp saying, what about Matip? Yes, I think Matip could be an option. One thing I would say, they got FA Cup, Champions League and Premier League to contend with. And they have Kanate, who we know can step in at any point. I think there is a chance that Matip could from now and then potentially get rotated. Let me know, guys, obviously, if there are any Spurs fans in the chat. Apologies, Spurs fans, Liverpool fans in the chat, whether you think that it is not a fair argument to say. Justin, hey Nacho, thanks for the live stream. I've already made a transfer to Alonso. I can do Son to Mount for a -4, or Barnes/Kulusevski for Mount, and Ian Nacho to Pukki, another striker for a -8. Any thoughts? So, just to cover the Son situation, Son to Mason Mount for this particular game week, I absolutely think Mason Mount will outscore Son. There's no questions about it. I personally think if I had to bet on it right now, Mason Mount outscores Son. However, do I think Mason Mount plays in the double game week 36? Both games? No, because of the FA Cup final. Son, on the other hand, while he has 2 tricky fixtures, will definitely play in both of the fixtures in game week 36. So while we're looking short term, yes, I do like Mount. Longer term, I think Son could outscore Mount quite comfortably, in particular against Leicester, who have, of course, a Europa League involvement. I think it could be a weakened Leicester team against Spurs. I do like the second option you're talking about, Barnes and Kulusevski to Mount and Pukki, but for the -8, I'm not massive on, so I'm not huge on. And Gintonga saying, James is not playing as right wing back anymore, remember? Yeah, he definitely isn't right now. However, I do think he will get deployed from time to time in that right wing back role for sure. I don't think he's absolutely locked in a right centre back role personally. Shubham saying, what are the chances of Man City to get a double in game week 36? And I see a lot of you guys are on about potential announcements. I'm not sure if there has been one already. Let me know if there has been. But I think a lot of people are saying there's more chance of it being game week 36 than 37 now. Jack saying, I'm going for both Chelsea and City defender. Already have James and will be sure going for Laporte and Cancelo in coming weeks. Yeah, absolutely love that move. I think that's some really solid moves. A lot of people are saying about the announcement again, guys. I haven't seen an announcement myself, but please do let me know if there is one in regards to Man City. Right, guys. So I think, as again, I'm going to quickly cover a bit more of the algorithm points. Then we'll be looking at a bit of a wildcard team. Then we'll be looking at the algorithm 11 for those that are potentially free hitting. That'll be super beneficial. We've been going for 45 minutes already. Absolutely flies by always when we're doing this. So this is kind of the lineup of the algorithm points for this week. I've left it on the screen for quite a while now. I want to just filter it between now and the end of the season, potentially for those managers that are looking at, myself included, I'm looking to free hit in game week 37/36, depending on how Man City fixtures fall. So every transfer is important to make between now and the end of the season. Now, it's worth mentioning, this projected points isn't taking into account a Man City double, so it is worth mentioning that. I fully expect the Man City assets to shoot up in the projected points once that does get announced. But you can see here, the obvious names are still emerging. And we had the discussion about Son as an FPL option versus Mount. And you can see there, while Son may not necessarily score big in game week 34, game week 36, 9.4 projected points, 6.6 in 37, and 6.8 projected points in 38. So while short term he might not be reaping the rewards for you, long term he's definitely still a brilliant option to go with. Now the one I love but I never can own is Mahrez at Man City. You can see that 4th highest projected points of any player between now and the end of the season. It's all about that rotation. Can we guarantee that he is going to play against Watford at home and pick up those 8.2 projected points? I really don't know. And unfortunately, I don't have that kind of confidence that the projected points algorithm has as we speak. So while Mahrez, I think if he plays between now and the end of the season, could be the differential to own, can we really sit here and say that Mahrez is going to play every game between now and the end of the season? I personally can't see it. Now, a few other notable ones, Havertz and Mount, almost identical. So again, I really think it's a coin flip if you are going for one or the other. Maddison, 31.5 projected points. I would be a little bit cautious about that one just because of the potential rotation if they do continue to be strong in the Europa League. And another one, Jamie Vardy, potentially in the squad for game week 34. We could see a late resurgence for Jamie Vardy's ownership. If he becomes available ahead of game week 36, then he could be an unbelievable option. If I filter this from game week 36 to game week 38, you can see there, Jamie Vardy, head and shoulders, the highest projected points on 26.3. Now, with Jamie Vardy being out for so long, I really could see him playing every single league fixture if he does return before game week 36. I think minutes are going to be massive for him to get up and running for the end of the season. And if he was to be fit and raring to go ahead of game week 36, I think he could be an amazing differential to own in your teams. And I really do have fingers crossed that he is going to be available, because he could be an absolute game changer for those managers that are seeking a massive rank rise in those last 3 game weeks. So fingers crossed for Jamie Vardy that he does get confirmed fit and raring to go for game week 36 onwards, because I think he could be the forward that we've been waiting on for so long. Okay, guys, just seeing a few more comments in here. We've got Edvin saying, is it announced City double? No, nothing about City just yet. Colm saying, I'm leaning towards a Cancelo / Laporte double up for the remainder of the season. Absolutely love that. Something that I'm considering as well. JP, Barnes, Martinelli, Wood, Tierney out for Havertz, Mount, and Nketiah, Cedric for a -12 bench boost in game week 36. So if you are looking to bench boost, then the -12 effectively doesn't become much of an issue for you, because you're selling someone like Tierney, who definitely gets 0 points, but then you are selling players like Martinelli, Wood, Barnes, who will get game time, but you would question about, first and foremost, the fixture that they have, and secondly, about the actual form that they're in. I like Havertz, I like Mount. The one thing I would say to you is, if you are bench boosting in game week 36, with those Chelsea assets, that second half of the double against Leeds is 2 days before the FA Cup final. I think Chelsea will have the top 4 wrapped up between now and then. Then you're going to be in a position where, does Tuchel decide to play Havertz and Mount, some of his best players in the team, 2 days before a game against Liverpool in an FA Cup final? I personally don't see that. So I would almost view Havertz and Mason Mount as, if you're bench boosting, single game weekers rather than double game weekers personally. But we might get more information between now and the end of that game week. A few more. Ashley, Coutinho or Saka? I probably would go Saka. I would probably still go Saka. I think he's operating better than Coutinho right now. I do think if you want to go for a little bit of a strategy, you could go Saka short term, flip over to Coutinho for that double, maybe put the captaincy on him, go a bit different on that direction. JT, is that a Bristolian accent, JT? Very close to Bristol, about 25 minutes out in the depths of Gloucestershire. Rami, Wildcard 34 and bench boost 36. Matty Cash is a must. We know Digne is potentially out for the season. I think Matty Cash, definitely the option you want to go for if you are investing in a Aston Villa defender. Right, guys, I'm going to bring up a wildcard team now. Now, this isn't one that necessarily I have created based on my personal opinions. This is a mixture of opinion, predicted points, value. So, apologies. Let's get up a Wildcard team, which I think ticks a lot of the boxes for managers going forward. So this team has 0.4 million in the bank with my sort of team value that I have. Now, Schmeichel in goal. If I had to name one Leicester player to play for every game from now until the end of the season, it's absolutely Schmeichel. Remember, doubles in 36 and 37. Even if you don't expect him to keep any clean sheets, you're expecting 4 points minimum from him in each of the double game weeks. That there is enough for me to have him as my goalkeeper between now and the end of the season. And Ben Foster, still an active goalkeeper at a cheap price point, brilliant to own in your wildcard teams. Now the defence, some of the people that I think are absolutely essential. Trent Alexander-Arnold, I still think is essential. Cancelo, likewise. Now, I put Reece James in the equation. I still think he's the best Chelsea defender. But because of the Rudiger injury recently, I'm not going for a double Chelsea defence. Instead, I'm going for the Man City double defence. I don't trust any Man City midfielder enough to be going for him and him. I can't double up in Man City midfield. However, I think the double up in defence is the route to go for. And with their fixtures coming up, I just think that is going to be guaranteed points between now and the end of the season. And the fifth defender is going to be Mitchell. Now, this could be other players. There's a lot of players on the same sort of threshold. But with Tyreek Mitchell, what we are getting is decent fixtures and a double in game week 37 as well. Now, what I would say to managers is, if you are free hitting in game week 37, then I don't think Mitchell is the player for you. And the main reason being is, if I was wildcarding with no other chips available, I like Mitchell, doubles in game week 37, decent double against Villa and Everton, and a nice home fixture in 36 against Watford. What I don't like is if you're playing your free hit in game week 37, then you're effectively going to be free hitting Crystal Palace players into your team. Therefore, you don't really need them in your wildcard because the main appeal of them is the double in 37. So this is all about what chips you have available in regards to Tyreek Mitchell. But I like him as a cheap option in that defence. Now, the midfield, Saka still thinks a brilliant option for those wildcard teams. Mount and Havertz, really like those as the double up in the midfield. But again, tread carefully, guys. 36, I'm expecting rotation at Leeds game. I've mentioned it about 5 or 6 times now. Salah, just non-negotiable in my eyes for a wildcard team. And then Mahrez. Now, Mahrez is definitely the risk in this midfield. But I think if you are seeking a rank rise, you want to take a few risks, I think Mahrez is the absolute perfect option. Price point is still decent around the 8.5 million range. So you're not paying the premiums of the Kevin De Bruynes. And with the fixtures coming up, he could absolutely explode over this period. Now, again, looking at the upcoming fixtures, Watford at home, if he plays that fixture, he could have an absolute haul. And the same goes for Leeds away as well. Newcastle at home, West Ham away, and Villa at home. Every single fixture, I think, if Mahrez was to be operating in these games, could have a field day. It's just all about those expected minutes. Unfortunately, all Man City midfielders are at a risk of rotation. I just like Mahrez as the fun, risky upside pick. Now, for the forwards, I've gone for Pukki. A lot of people are discussing him right now, and I think he ticks all the boxes as a brilliant wildcard option. Been great form recently. You can see it with his points returns. 9-pointer, 9-pointer, 5-pointer, 8-pointer, 7-pointer. He's been in a great run of form recently. And with the fixtures coming up, Newcastle at home, Villa away, followed by a double in 36. I think it's a really nice option to own at 6 million. So if you are looking for a cheap forward, I think Pukki definitely ticks the boxes for you. And then Geldhard at Leeds, again, not expecting anything for him. This sort of formation would be keen towards a 5-4-1 or going for a 4-4-2 formation. But Watkins makes up the last of them. And again, I'm not big on Watkins as an FPL option, but the fixtures look good for him. Leicester away, Norwich at home, a double in 36 and a double in 37. I think that's enough fixture volume to be tempted by Ollie Watkins as an FPL option. So I'll leave the wildcard screen up, the wildcard team up on your screens for you guys to check out. Let me know in the chat which sort of players here are you absolutely against. Are there ones here that you absolutely love? I'd be really interested to know what sort of mindset you guys are in with your wildcard. And obviously, guys, I was about to say try and get us to 50 likes, but you guys have already done that. So I massively appreciate you guys getting us to 50 likes. That's been something that we've been hitting every single time. And it's been really great to see that we have continued that trend. And hopefully we can do that between now and the end of the season. That'll be a really great sort of point for us to be at going forward. Just quickly checking to see if there's been any double game week announcement. Can't see anything whatsoever. So it looks like we might not get an announcement in regards to the Man City double, which is really big for those managers that are looking to play their wildcards. I don't envy you guys right now in that direction. Right, guys, let's have a few more questions to look at here. Tim saying Alonso or James. I still think James is a route to go for personally. Harvey, Alonso plus Havertz or Alonso plus James plus Havertz? Probably just the Alonso Havertz route personally, just because I don't trust Chelsea defensively enough to go double. Chim saying from now until bench boost 36, which of the Ramsey and Kane or Werner and Foden will be best? It's probably got to be Werner and Foden because of the amount of doubles that they have between now and that bench boost in 36. But that all depends on Man City bench boosting in 36 if they get their double then and there. Ahmed, Foden or Sterling on a wildcard? Probably Foden just because of his price point. You're going to have much more flexibility in your team to upgrade other areas of your team. Ricky saying about a City double game week possibility. Fortunately, no announcement right now, which is a real shame. Hopefully we can get one, but I'm not confident. Daniel, Chelsea leads is 3 days prior to the FA Cup final. 2 days makes an enormous difference. Daniel, it's a really good point. I thought it was 2 days. If it's 3 days, then that could be a big impact. But I still think there's going to be big rotations in that Chelsea team. Rodro is saying, good evening. Hope you're doing well, mate. Think it's worth taking in Werner and out Weghorst for a -4. Don't mind it for a -4 if you are really not confident on Weghorst in his fixture. So I don't mind it as a -4, but I'm just not huge on Werner as others are. JP, what free hit has the most upside in your opinion? Game week 34 or 37? 34 could save me hits for a 36 bench boost. Yeah, so JP, all about team dependency. I like 37 just because if we do get the Man City one in there, could pile in on Man City, then you've got the likes of Crystal Palaces, Everton's, Aston Villas that you can jump in. But if 34 works for your team, your strategy, don't be backed off by going for it. I think it'd be a great time to pile in on Chelsea assets. I wouldn't be really looking at Man United, but you could own big the likes of Liverpool and Man City. You could go for some real nice punts in the likes of Mahrez, even Sterling's if you want to go down that route for sure. Now, talking about free hits, I'm going to wrap up this live stream looking at the algorithm 11, which is essentially a free hit team for you guys to consider going forward. So get that up on screen for you guys here. And of course, this is based on the algorithm points, a little bit of team value available. So you can see here, goalkeeper, David De Gea, which is quite a surprising one to see as the algorithm pick. But again, we do not argue with the algorithm points. So David De Gea is the goalkeeper with his double against Chelsea and Arsenal. Now, the main reason being is it would probably be Mendy, but because we can only have 3 from each team, our algorithm squad is catering more towards a double Chelsea defence and a single Chelsea midfield. So the back four of Cancelo and Trent is still picks itself. Although there's other double game weeks out there with the likes of Man United in defence, I still think Cancelo and Trent offer brilliant value and they still have excellent defensive fixtures. Thiago Silva and Alonso make up the double up in the Chelsea defence. I don't like Thiago Silva long term, but I do expect him to play large amount of the minutes in this double game week. And Alonso being the favoured one of him versus Reece James. Again, long term, I think Reece James is the route to go for. I like Alonso as a punt if you want to go for that route. And the midfield got some really exciting picks here. A lot of managers won't have Mahrez or Kevin De Bruyne. So if you are free hitting, I think this is a brilliant opportunity to go against the grain. Go for someone like Mahrez or Kevin De Bruyne or both if you have the funds available. Salah, non-negotiable, again, as I mentioned. And Havertz gets a pick. Again, we've touched on it. He is the one to own, I think, this game week if you are looking for a one-week punt. And interesting, Langer as the budget option in that midfield. Haven't really touched on him at all. Been okay for Man United. Been getting a bit of game time. If you're on the market for a sub 5 million midfielder, then Langer probably does tick the box. Has a double game week. probably would get minutes. Don't mind him as an option. And Pukki at home to Newcastle. We know that they have a little bit of rotation worries based on the fitness levels of some of their players. Could Norwich catch Newcastle sleeping potentially? I think there's a solid chance of that. So really like Pukki as an option as well. While I don't think he'll be a popular transfer in this week, I think game week 35 onwards, he's definitely going to be an attractive option for managers going forward. So going to leave that on the screen for you guys there. I think we're going to have to wrap it up there. We'll be going for over an hour. Again, if you have any questions about hot topics, we covered the Chelsea midfielders earlier on. We covered the Chelsea defenders. We've looked at a wildcard team. We've looked at the algorithm squad. Fortunately, throat is playing up a little, guys, so I won't be able to go much longer, unfortunately. I've kind of overstayed my welcome on the illness here. But I'm going to try and answer the last few questions in the chat, and then I will wrap it up there. So, JP, what free hit? I've covered that one. Apologies, JP. Chris, is it worth bringing in Reece James in for another -4? Chris, it's going to be all about who you're selling. I like Reece James long term. That's all I have to say on that one, but it depends who you're selling for the -4. Andreas, would you go Rudiger to Laporte or Bank and hope Rudiger plays against United? I probably would make the Rudiger to Laporte move if I had to. I think if you're banking the transfer, it's all about what are your 2 free transfers going to do for you in game week 35. If you're seeing amazing directions your squad can go in, then I think the free transfer rolled is a nice move. Otherwise, Rudiger to Laporte, I think, is a really nice option for you. Golden Boys, Laporte or Cash? No chips left. Have to be Laporte for me, definitely. And Yi Chan saying, captain option. Based on the algorithm points, Havertz will be the man to own. Still think Salah is a brilliant option as well. If you are worried about double game weekers, you don't really fancy them, the single game week option always reverts back to Salah. So we're going to wrap that up there, guys. It's been just over an hour of this live stream. I really do appreciate you guys tuning into this live stream on a Friday evening. Now, of course, it is a Saturday morning deadline, 11 a.m. So please make sure you do not miss the deadline. On your way out, please do drop the live stream a like and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I do apologize to anyone that I didn't get to with the questions. Of course, we are always active on Twitter and Instagram. So if you haven't already, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, drop us a DM on Instagram. We'll be sure to try and get to you on our other platforms. So I really do appreciate you guys jumping on this live stream. We'll be back again next week. Still plenty of content to cover ahead of game week 35. Going to be doing the usual transfer tips. Going to be doing the stats videos. And of course, another live stream ahead of the deadline. So thanks very much for tuning in, guys. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Have a great game week. Hopefully it's a green arrow. And I will talk to you guys next week. Take care. Have a great weekend. Cheers.